This is East Asia Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Natalia Edwards. Tonight's top stories from East Asia. Shein's dispute with French authorities deepens. The foreign minister seeking action by the European Commission against the Chinese clothing retailer, claiming a breach of EU rules. 7 people are feared trapped under this collapsed structure at a power station in Ulsan, South Korea. A South Korean President Lee Jae-myung calling for all-out efforts in rescue. Also, a new alliance taking shape in the Pacific. Japan and the US explore joint rare earth mining. Test drilling may begin as soon as January within Japan's exclusive economic zone near the remote Minami Torii Island. And rival Chinese robotaxi companies Pony AI and WeRide slide sharply on their debut in Hong Kong amid concerns about profitability.
From Japan's perspective, I think that it is quite valid to focus more on adaptation, because looking at the current energy trajectory, it is not at all likely that the world will achieve 1.5 degrees Celsius goals.
The Chief Sustainability Officer of Japan's Energy and Mineral Agency tells CNA ahead of the COP30 climate summit in Brazil that the need for innovative financial mechanisms is greater than ever. Plus, Japan's ramping up measures against bear attacks. Its police amending rules today to allow its officers to use rifles to cull bears after a spate of deadly attacks. France is moving to suspend e-commerce platform Shein after childlike sex dolls and weapons were found as items for sale on its website. A foreign minister, Jean-Noel Barrot, going further, pushing the European Commission to sanction the fast fashion giant, as he says it's in breach of the bloc's rules. Shein says it sanctioned the sellers of the sex dolls and implemented a worldwide ban on the sale of such products from its site. The Chinese-founded company also decided to temporarily halt its marketplace in France to review and strengthen how third-party sellers operate. But the government says the suspension will be enforced until the online giant proves that it can comply with French law. The move comes as the fast fashion retailer opened its first-ever store in Paris yesterday, causing uproar in the fashion capital of the world. And for more insights, we go to Ross Cullen now, who's reporting for CNA from Paris. Now, Ross, this move to suspend Shein in France comes, we've mentioned it because it's new, as its new brick and mortar store opened in Paris just yesterday. Do we know if the government's move will affect this?
Well, the government's latest letter is to Brussels, saying that perhaps it's not just a French issue, but one that needs to be dealt with at the European Union level, hoping that there can be a full investigation and potentially the application of any adaptable sanctions by the European Union on Shein. So certainly it's not an issue that France believes is cut and dried, one that is over now that Shein has said that it will be complying with all investigations, that it's ready to provide a list of the names of people who've been buying and selling these adult entertainment dolls with a childlike appearance on their site. They did say that that was something that was intolerable and unacceptable, but certainly Shein has faced a controversy on a number of different levels for a number of years. The e-commerce giants trying to have the chance to celebrate the opening of its new bricks and mortar store, the first ever physical outlet for Shein anywhere in the world, and that's here in Paris, inside the BHV Marais department store. You can see behind me. You also might be able to see, I tell you, the black banners celebrating. They've got the word Shein on them. The opening date of the 5th of November. However, that opening on Wednesday was certainly marred by the controversy surrounding these sex dolls with a childlike appearance.
Also, Ross, just walk us through the reaction to the suspension of the store and the store opening.
Well, in fact, yesterday was very different. This side of the street where I'm standing was absolutely jam-packed with protesters against Shein, all sorts of placards and different political parties and flags. Even the Uyghur Muslim flag was flown at one stage. And that side of the street, Italy, was where all of the shoppers were queuing to try to be among the first people to go inside Shein's first ever physical store. They were booed when they came out clutching their Shein bags, having been able to purchase product inside BHV Marais. But you can see behind me today, there's actually nobody queuing to go inside, and all of these metal railings are being dismantled. It certainly was something that happened yesterday. Thousands of people here, curious members of the public, a lot of law enforcement as well. No police officers here today. So France certainly believes that while it's not over here, it can be an issue that continues to be investigated at the level of the European Union. Ateli?
Yeah, and certainly nobody likes to be booed after a shopping trip. Well, thank you so much for that report. Ross Cullen reporting for CNA from Paris. Now we turn our attention to South Korea now, where at least 7 people are feared trapped after a boiler tower structure collapsed at a decommissioned thermal power plant. A rescue crew said that the 2 people rescued earlier were not in life-threatening condition. The incident happened in Ulsan city at a facility owned by state-run Korea East-West Power Company just after 2 p.m. local time. Images from the scene showed a massive steel structure mangled and toppled over. A fire official said workers at the site were in the process of taking down parts of the structure and also to prepare it for demolition in about 10 days' time when the structure collapsed. Emergency crews remain on site for search and rescue operations. The South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has called on authorities to mobilize all available equipment and personnel for search and rescue efforts, while stressing the need for thorough safety measures so as to prevent any secondary accidents during the operation. Well, the incident today follows a separate industrial accident yesterday at a plant belonging to South Korean steelmaker POSCO. 1 worker died and 3 others injured after inhaling toxic gas. Pyongyang has condemned the latest U.S. sanctions targeting individuals and entities that Washington claims are involved in a variety of North Korean cyber-related money laundering schemes. Well, the U.S. Treasury Department says that the operations were conducted to help finance Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program. Now, the sanctions came even as U.S. President Donald Trump continues to express interest in reviving talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The U.S. Treasury Department had imposed sanctions on 8 individuals and 2 firms, including North Korean bankers, for allegedly laundering money. The Trump administration said the hacking schemes had stolen more than $3 billion in mostly digital assets over the past 3 years. The North Korean vice foreign minister has accused the U.S. of harboring hostility and vowed unspecified countermeasures. Now, in a recent speech, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said that U.S. sanctions will never change the present strategic situation or alter the North's thinking. China says that it has lodged a protest to Fiji after Taiwan said that it had welcomed a senior Fijian diplomat to the island this week. The Pacific island nation only has formal relations with Beijing. China, angered by the visit, said that Fiji has severely violated its commitment to the One China principle, which states that both sides of the Taiwan Strait are part of one country. The Fijian diplomat was visiting Taipei as part of a delegation of permanent representatives to the UN. While the group also included diplomats from Marshall Islands and Paraguay, both of which are Taipei's allies. Taiwan is not a member of the UN. Taiwan Vice President Xiao Bi-kim expressed her thanks to the permanent representatives, calling them friends of the island, for their support and assistance, allowing Taipei to play a meaningful part in the international system. Well, just yesterday, China and Fiji marked their 50 years of diplomatic ties. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said in its press briefing that Beijing attaches great importance to its relations with the Pacific Island nation and stands ready to work hand in hand to implement the consensus reached by the leaders from both sides. In Hong Kong, a 2-week nomination period for the city's Legislative Council election set for 7th of December has come to a close. Nominees are vying for 90 seats in a legislature drastically revamped by Beijing back in 2021 to only allow vetted individuals deemed as patriots to hold political power. The December election will be the second time since the revamp that polls are held. About a third of the current legislature members are stepping down, including veteran lawmakers, making way for prospective candidates such as Hong Kong star fencer Vivian Kong, who had won gold at last year's Paris Olympics. Her entry into the race comes at a time when analysts think Hong Kong authorities are seeking to bolster the city's democratic credentials.
I think Beijing wants to create a kind of more dynamic legislature in the medium and also long term, believing that if the voter turnout in this upcoming election will be high, then one day Beijing will consider or reconsider the possibility of direct election of the chief executive. In the short run, Hong Kong people have to demonstrate their political enthusiasm in political participation in this election, both in terms of running as candidates and also voting in the elections.
Japan and the U.S. may go into joint rare earth mining in the Pacific. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi said that they are studying co-development of rare earth minerals from waters around Minamitori Island. She says they may test the area in January. A framework agreement recently signed by U.S. President Donald Trump and the Japanese leader covers rare earth supplies. China currently dominates the industry, and findings have confirmed the presence of rich rare earth mud in the area, which is within Japan's exclusive economic zone. If initial tests are successful, the project is expected to expand by January 2027, potentially with up to 350 metric tons of mud mined per day. Now, Japan is also pushing through with a national project for domestic rare earth production to boost its maritime and economic security. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang warns China will beat the U.S. in the artificial intelligence race over lower energy costs and looser regulations. Speaking on the sidelines of the Financial Times Future of AI Summit, the NVIDIA CEO says the West is being held back by cynicism. Mr. Huang is referring to new rules on AI by U.S. states that could reportedly result in 50 new regulations. He adds that the approach is a stark contrast with Chinese energy subsidies that have made it more affordable for local tech firms to run Chinese alternatives to NVIDIA's AI chips. Mr. Huang's remarks come after U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping held talks last week. Despite a trade truce, Mr. Trump has made it clear that NVIDIA's most sophisticated semiconductors will be kept away from China and potentially the rest of the world. The move comes as Washington seeks to maintain an edge over Beijing in the critical technology. Coming up on East Asia tonight, Cathay Pacific looking to buy back its shares from Qatar Airways, bringing their 8-year shareholding relationship to an end. And liquor maker Kway Chow Multai also looking to repurchase shares in an effort to lift spirits on its prize.
All new on Singapore Hour. Check out the world's highest urban farm and other cool spots hidden in plain sight right above our heads.
Fresh Singapore honey. Wow, very good. Wow.
And what comes up must come down. Are you brave enough to take the plunge?
The heartbeat monitor on my watch says 121, which I'm pretty sure is not normal resting range.
Don't miss Singapore Hour, Friday on CNA.
Indonesia has big plans to bring back billions of dollars spent by its citizens on medical treatments abroad. On your next Asia First, we'll head to Bali's southeast coast, where the country is building its first integrated health and wellness district.
Saturday on Japan Hour.
生き残りをかけ企業風土改革に乗り出しますが、
お客様をしっかりにどういう体験を届けたいのか、そういったことを常に考えるようになりました。
成功の鍵は役員の意識を変えること。
そこはやっぱしんどいですね。
一時の風で終わるのか、それとも根を張る風土になるんでしょうか。
Japan Hour, Saturday on CNA. Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation. MUFG, committed to empowering a brighter future. Zip Air, winter's double daily flights for sale. And IHI.
Rethinking job security across Asia.
A lot of my peers were already looking into finding internships because the job market isn't very good now.
Jadi freelance itu bukan first choice aku, di mana first choice aku itu untuk dapat pekerjaan tetap.
When stable work feels out of reach, how do you turn uncertainty into opportunity? Money Mind, Saturday on CNA.
Hello again. Good to have your company on East Asia tonight. We've got Roland Lim joining us now for the very latest in the business world. And it seems like it is a pretty busy day for Hong Kong stock market today. I was told not one, but 4 IPOs actually making their debut.
Right, yes, indeed. It adds to the year-long bull run that shows no signs of slowing down for the Hong Kong bourse. But investors, it seems, weren't too bullish on the prospects of 2 new entrants. 2 Chinese robotaxi shares tanked in their debut on the Hong Kong exchange with concerns over profitability in a highly competitive sector. Pony AI and WeRide's maiden listings dipped as much as 15% before closing the session more than 9% down apiece. Both companies ran losses in the first half of this year and face competition from the likes of Baidu's Apollo Go in China, and abroad they face Tesla and Waymo. Pony AI raised about $860 million ahead of its Hong Kong debut, pricing shares at 139 Hong Kong dollars apiece. WeRide, on the other hand, raised more than $308 million from its Hong Kong share sale. The Guangzhou-based autonomous driving company priced its shares at $27.10 Hong Kong. Both robotaxi firms went public last year in the US. The simultaneous share offerings of Pony AI and WeRide highlights China's policy goal to be the world's leader in driverless vehicles by 2035. The head of Southeast Asia's biggest bank by assets says that AI valuations in the US are lofty, but there is value in Asia, particularly Japan. This as some US bank chiefs warn of a pullback in the equity markets of up to 20% as the benchmark S&P 500 continues to hit new highs. DBS Group CEO Tan Shan was speaking to CNA's Elizabeth Neal following the lender's earnings release today, where she noted that the markets have become more volatile these last 2 years.
I see a lot of, U.S. bank CEOs are saying, the AI is in a bubble. I think, leaders want to talk it down so that it doesn't go, too far up and then it crashes, because a crash is always more painful than a sort of a consolidation or a natural correction, if you will. I agree. I think AI valuations in the U.S. or, some other markets are very lofty. You've got real concentration in 7 stocks today. The U.S. market cap is 72 trillion. It's almost 3/4 of the world market valuation. Singapore, Hong Kong, China are trading at sort of the mid to low teens right now on the PE basis. So there is value, I think, in Asia, ex-Japan. Japan's also done incredibly well. So I won't be surprised to see a sort of asset reallocation, perhaps to this part of the world where yields are higher, dividend yields are higher. The currencies aren't too expensive, and the valuations are a little bit more reasonable.
In your personal assessment, that 10 to 20% drawdown, I mean, that number seems a bit scary, but do you have a number that
Well, I don't know when you have stocks at $5 trillion. Yeah, I mean, you look at what happened to the price of gold, for example. They had a sharp uptick and then a recent correction. I think markets have become a lot more volatile in the last 2 years. Even interest rates and foreign and FX have become quite volatile. So equities, being volatile is no surprise. I think coupled with a lot of algorithmic trading by trading rooms, by hedge funds are dominating flows right now, and also by digital trading. Everyone's got a phone and you can trade, literally instant. So I think that exacerbates both the uptick and the downswings.
Now, the BS had reported a 2% drop on year in net profit for the 3 months ended September to 2.95 billion Singapore dollars, although the figure did beat market estimates. The bank said commercial book net interest income from its banking activities fell 6% to $3.56 billion, while overall earnings were supported by net fee income, which rose 22% to hit a record of 1.36 billion Singapore dollars. The lender said it expects 2026 net profit to dip slightly from this year as it continues to navigate the pressures of declining interest rates.
I'll interpret Q3 as a solid quarter. We had a lot of headwinds. The key was interest rates dropping. SORA, which is the Singapore Interbank rate, fell by quite a lot. So there was a big net interest margin headwind. Nonetheless, that was made up for by massive growth in both wealth management and deposit growth. So volumes made up for most of that headwind. And the wealth management and fee growth across all parts of the bank was very good. Trading income was also very good. So I would say it was a high quality quarter in spite of, the interest rate headwinds in Singapore, as well as the tax equalization. It's basically the minimum tax that we had to pay up by the full year will be about 400 million. We have a net floating asset book mostly in Sing. So if that drops, then we lose money on the interest rate. But we also have a floating liability, which again, and a lot of that's in US dollars. So if US dollar rates actually go down, we benefit from a lower cost of funding. So, but the net mix then depends on where rates go. So if US rates go down by more, we actually benefit. If Sing rates go down by more, then we lose. So this year it's been one of Sing rates going down by a lot more than US dollar rates, and that's why we've been impacted and our NIMs have been impacted. But as I said, there are structural tailwinds that we are riding. One is wealth management. One is the revitalization of capital markets in Asia, and one is the rise of assets run by institutions, financial institutions, pensions, insurance companies, banks, non-banks. They're all growing really nicely. There's a silver population in Asia. They all need wealth solutions, and so insurance companies are growing very well here in Asia. So there's some structural tailwinds that we are riding right now, which should mitigate some of these, headwinds around interest rates.
Meantime, another Singapore lender, UOB, set aside a record provision for Hong Kong's property loans at about 615 million Singapore dollars. It is anticipating potential losses in both the Hong Kong and US property markets. UOB's net profit for the quarter fell 72% on year to 443 million Singapore dollars, missing estimates. Earnings were weighed down by an 8% on-year drop in net interest income, as well as a 2% on-year dip in net fee income. Hong Kong flag carrier Cathay Pacific says it'll buy back all of its shares owned by Qatar Airways, a deal worth nearly $900 million. If the deal goes through, it will net the Qatari carrier a handsome premium of around 35% of what it paid for it back in 2017. Now, Cathay's chief says that the buyback reflects confidence in the carrier's future, which also laid out a $13 billion plan to revitalize its fleet and services. Baijiu brewer Quizhou Maotai says it's planning another round of share buyback in a bid to prop up its share price. Once China's largest listed company, the flagging liquor maker, is seeking to reverse its fortunes as it comes to terms with sluggish domestic consumption. The brewer says it plans to spend up to $421 million this time, just months after it concluded its first round. And that's the business news for now, Otelli.
But I'll be seeing you later, right, Roland?
You will indeed.
Not quite done yet. All right, on that note, we're going to go for a short break. But coming up next on East Asia tonight, world leaders are gathering in the Amazon for this year's UN climate talks. From high-stakes diplomacy to logistical headaches. We'll tell you what's at stake.
I'm Sylvie. I'm a brick artist. This is the old Supreme Court, giant carnivorous plants. I really like to build shop houses in Singapore. This one has really intricate details of flowers and birds, and that's what I'm trying to capture. My dad would still tell my son, tell your mother she should go find a proper job.
Inside Sylvie's World of Brick Art, Saturday on CNA.
小的时候就想着说，为什么父母会把我们遗弃？
我姥姥跟我说，那花了120块钱宝来。
One of the reasons why we're so fascinated with the idea of resurrection is because so much has been lost. Could we perhaps change the past?
This is East Asia tonight, and here are the headlines we're following. Shein's dispute with French authorities deepens. The foreign minister seeking action by the European Commission against the Chinese clothing retailer, claiming a breach of EU rules. At least 7 people are feared trapped in South Korea's Ulsan city after a boiler tower structure collapsed at a decommissioned thermal power plant. 2 people rescued earlier were not in life-threatening condition. And Japan says it's looking at co-developing a project to mine rare earth minerals from waters around a remote island in the Pacific, with trial mining set for January. More than 100 national delegations, including heads of state, are assembling deep in the Amazon rainforest for this year's UN-led climate talks. A COP30 will take place in Belém, the gateway to Brazil's lower Amazon. But before the main event starts next week, the Leaders' Summit begins today. From our CNN newsroom, here is Jack Board on what to expect and also what to look out for.
Breaking with tradition, the Leaders segment will happen before the main conference begins, with presidents and prime ministers to wrap up their speeches and bilateral meetings well before tens of thousands of negotiators, lobbyists and activists arrive. We'll be listening out for that. The World Leaders Summit runs across 2 days ahead of negotiations proper from November 10th to 21st, not counting the overtime that often drags these talks into extra hours and days. Reworking the schedule is an acknowledgement of the strain this event is placing on Belém, a city simply not built for a gathering of this size. There's been a scramble for accommodation, hotels fully booked, cruise ships brought in, and prices soaring to eye-watering highs. So, who's coming? Britain's Keir Starmer will attend, as will France's Emmanuel Macron. But some major players are staying away, citing other priorities, logistical hurdles and fading political appetite for climate diplomacy, even as the planet heats faster than ever. One clear absentee, the United States. President Donald Trump has withdrawn America from the Paris Agreement, a process that will take a year to complete, leaving Washington's role at COP30 greatly diminished. That absence could open space for China to assert more influence. For those attending, the agenda remains formidable. Countries will present new national climate plans up to 2035. It could set the tone for global ambition for the decade ahead. They'll also face pressure to outline a roadmap for climate finance following last year's breakthrough in Baku to unlock $300 billion a year by 2035 for developing countries, a sum that many critics say falls far short of what's actually needed. Expect fierce debate over how quickly to move away from fossil fuels, how to scale up renewables, and how to fund loss and damage in nations already suffering from climate disasters. In the heart of the world's largest rainforest, also expect the rhetoric about protecting nature and Indigenous communities to hit home. But the test will be whether the politics can rise to match the scale of the surroundings. Jack Board, CNA, Singapore.
So, Roland, earlier you actually managed to speak to the Chief Sustainability Officer of Japan's Energy and Mineral Agency. I'm curious to know, what did he say?
Yes, Jun Arima. He is at the Energy Summit at APEC 2025 in Abu Dhabi, and we discussed Japan's and Asia's net zero pathways. Now, I started out by asking the JOCMAC Chief Sustainable Officer just what sort of deal architecture that he wants Japan to be championing so that Asia can decarbonize without sacrificing resilience.
In COP30, finance would be a key topic, and in particular, adaptation will be a key topic in COP30. And many developing countries would like to set adaptation finance goals, and also they are supposed to agree on the global goal for adaptation. So that would be a big topic in COP30. And from Japan's perspective, I think that it is quite valid to focus more on adaptation, because looking at the current energy trajectory, it is not at all likely that the world will achieve 1.5 degrees Celsius goals for 2050 carbon neutrality. So given that situation, we need to care a lot about loss and damage and also adaptation. Looking at the current financial flow to climate finance, the bulk of the financial flow is happening in mitigation, and adaptation is undergoing serious underinvestment. So therefore, it is right to focus on adaptation. But in order to do so, we need to discuss more innovative financial mechanism, because adaptation may not be necessarily suitable for private finance. So how to mobilize the public finance for adaptation, it is a big agenda, and unfortunately, I don't have the clear answer to this compelling question.
Your agency is a government agency tasked with securing stable supplies as well as energy and mineral resources. Given U.S. tariffs and U.S.-China chip controls on tools and minerals, how does JOCMAC actually de-risk Japan's energy mineral supply chain?
Yeah, thank you very much. And JOCMAC is very much heavily involved in supply security of critical minerals. And for example, JOCMAC is providing various risk money to the mining activities of various critical minerals. And also we are providing risk money to Japanese private companies involved in these critical mineral sectors. And we have helped Japanese companies to organize a joint venture. One of the big example is Linus, that is an Australian company. But it is based on the joint venture between Japanese company and the Australian company. And as you said, as you know, Japan suffered from the export ban from the Chinese government of the rare earth back in 2011. But we have agreed to set up Linus together with the Australian companies. So now we have overcome largely the supply crunch of the light rare earth. So that kind of, various, the security activity is quite important. And of course, JOGMEC is also involved in the stockpiling of the critical minerals. By doing so, we are contributing to supply security of critical minerals.
It does sound like you are accelerating diversification to ASEAN as well as to Australia. But what about your carbon capture and storage as well as hydrogen ammonia projects? I mean, what about its timelines as well as cost assumptions going forward?
Yeah, and that's a big question, the good and big question, because the CCS is absolutely necessary for decarbonizing energy mix in the Asian region, and also hydrogen is important. And looking at the energy situation in Asia, we cannot envisage the large penetration of green hydrogen from outset. So first of all, we need to consider, say, brown hydrogen and blue hydrogen. That means hydrogen production from fossil fuels and then neutralizing CO2 emissions by CCUS. But, to be frank, I think, we are also involved in the hydrogen CFD, Contact for Difference in Japan. And we are now examining various, the hydrogen project. And unless there is 100% subsidy, the private sector is very much hesitant to be heavily involved in that kind of, the next generation technologies. Likewise, they are very much reluctant to get into a CCS project without 100% subsidy. So we need to substantially reduce the technology cost. And that is, full of uncertainties. So let's hope that the hydrogen technologies or CCS technologies will be commercially viable by 2040, but nobody knows. So Japanese government recently adopted the Basic Energy Plan, and there are plural scenarios in that Basic Energy Plan. And one of the scenarios is, if the clean technology cost reduction does not happen as envisaged, then Japan will most probably miss the NDC, nationally determined contribution. But we should not rule out these sort of possibilities because, the energy market is full of uncertainties.
Japan's J-Power is also shutting down its old Takasago coal plant, and it's also looking to reduce emissions by using carbon capture technology and mixing ammonia with fuels for some plants after 2030. How is that moving the dial, making a difference in terms of cutting emissions on a large scale?
Yeah, and I think that, we are closing down the obsolete and the old coal power plant. And also, we are still using high-efficiency coal power plant, even after 2030. And on the other hand, we have set very much ambitious carbon mitigation goals, carbon neutrality by 2050. But in order to do so, we need definitely CCS. So CCS technology is one of the key. But how quickly that can be introduced, that is, again, subject to uncertainty. And what we should not forget is affordability problems. And that is a problem not only for Japan, but also for almost all the countries. And if energy transition is too costly, then it is impossible to get the public support for such policies. So this is proven in, for example, the most recent European Parliament election last year. So people are not welcoming expensive policy options. So energy transition needs to be always affordable. And people need to understand the necessity of mitigation. So government and also various academic circles and non-government organizations, on one hand, need to explain why we have to care climate change and why we need to be willing to pay additional costs. But at the same time, the government need to check the price tag of various clean technologies like CCS or hydrogen and so forth. And if energy price become too expensive, then that will damage industrial activities, and that could lead to carbon leakage. So managing the pace of decarbonization, and also managing the, pathway is quite important, not only for Japan, but also for the Asian countries, I think.
And more on COP30 can be found on our website, cna.asia, and on our mobile app, including this article in which the World Energy Council has urged countries to shift from mere talks to the climate to action. Do check it out. Coming up in East Asia tonight, small businesses in the U.S. are struggling to keep their heads above water as they grapple with higher import costs and unpredictability of what tariffs might come next.
A new child joining late.
Asher would like to join the game.
We can't lead. He has more really small legs. Then so Asher no play.
During COVID lockdown, we are all at home. Social interaction dropped drastically.
Do you ever think about your child being a bully?
Talking Point, Sunday on CNA. China's marriage rate is in steep decline. And its matchmakers are having an impossible job.
推了一些人，但是没看中一个。
每一次跟他约会，就我觉得他的要求不断的在增加。
For the country's future existence, they cannot afford to fail. Chinese matchmakers, Monday on CNA.
We remember the past in black and white. But for those who lived it, the past was colorful and never silent.
He has that kind of vital information that they would really kill to get.
我梦见我的爸爸，我和爸爸讲，你还不跑啊？
When war ended, people returned to the worlds, looking for escape.
The three worlds had no restrictions, what you can or cannot do.
Women of that era, they're very strong. Without an education, how to survive?
The three worlds weren't just amusement parks. They were where entertainment came alive.
You book a house there, you wouldn't know that your house is situated on Happy World.
Technology lets us experience what time tried to bury. Through Time premieres 15 November, Saturday on CNA.
Hello again. So good to have your company on East Asia tonight. And today we just can't get enough of our colleague Roland. We keep calling him back for more. And now we're going to be talking about the world of trade. So Roland, it's been nearly a year since Trump returned to the White House. In a nutshell, how are the global supply chains actually holding up?
Well, it seems that Trump's pledge to make America great again is more like taking a bull to a china shop with unintended consequences. And one company that's felt the impact of U.S. tariffs is logisticals giant DHL. Its third quarter revenue declined to around $23 billion, but it still managed to deliver third quarter earnings that beat profit expectations. Now, earlier I spoke with DHL's CEO, Tobias Meyer, on the impact of U.S. trade policies and the company's expanding leadership in the Asia-Pacific region.
Well, we do see a profound impact of those changes in U.S. trade policy. You mentioned the de minimis that affects especially smaller goods, e-commerce shipment especially. Those goods now become significantly more expensive for the U.S. consumer. That triggers a certain elasticity, so less volumes being shipped. But we managed to cope with that. We flexed capacity, we adjusted where we needed to, and that overall led to some earnings growth even in our international shipping business. So it has been some work on our side. Quality has also been very good in the third quarter, so we're supporting our customers well. So given the circumstances, for us, a really good quarter.
Global trade, particularly in Asia, is shifting, but it's still very important to your business. Your Asia-Pacific leadership is pointing to more investment in places like Vietnam and Indonesia. Which three markets are receiving the most new investments for DHL this year?
So absolutely. DHL has its second home in Asia. It's a market that we're very excited about. We feel very much at home in the whole geography, ranging from China down to Australia. So it's a key focus area, has been a key focus area for us. China is still very important. We shouldn't forget that China's export to the region, Southeast Asia, Middle East, that grew also in the third quarter. We see Chinese companies internationalizing not only their distribution, but also their manufacturing footprint. So China, particularly those Chinese companies, internationalizing is a focus. Southeast Asia, very much on our agenda. Investments in Malaysia happening, Singapore remaining its hub status, Vietnam being really a hot market. India, we have been strong also through our subsidiary Blue Dart. So it's a region where we really spend a lot of time to make sure we support our customers well.
Tobias, you recently opened a new innovation center in Europe. Which three new technologies, and I'm talking about AI, robots, or the Internet of Things, are you moving from trials to widespread use?
So in this physical innovation center, which we also use to really show those technologies that also suppliers obviously provide to us, to show them to customers, to have a discussion around how we apply them. Robotics is really at the center of that. Very exciting how things develop. Robots are also using AI, getting more capable through the use of AI, and you can really see that day by day evolving in a very positive way. So that's a key focus area of our innovation centers. We also talk about sustainability. That's very high on our agenda, remains high on our agenda, how we decarbonize logistics, how we provide less carbon-intensive logistics solutions on to our customers. So that's also a central theme for the innovation center.
The Trump administration may be trade dealing with countries looking to avoid crippling U.S. tariffs. But for some American companies, concessions may come too little, too late. Now, small companies in the U.S. say they are already grappling with the higher cost of imported materials and trying to figure out how they can survive. Correspondent Mitch McCann filed this report from New York.
Since 1989, Deborah Koenigsberger has owned Noir en Blanc in Manhattan, where she sells hand-picked, high-quality clothing, with much of it coming from France. Deborah regularly attends Paris Fashion Week to scout the latest styles, but not this year.
I can't go to Paris and order a season's worth of merchandise and then not be able to bring it in because the tariffs have taken me to a point where I can't sell it.
Deborah says the unpredictability of President Trump's tariffs makes it difficult for small businesses to plan ahead. She describes the levies as punitive. Her current collection avoided the tariffs because she buys a year in advance. Next year's purchases could be problematic, though, and it's forcing her to rethink how she runs her business and who she employs.
Well, if this comes to pass, I mean, I'm going to have to really sit down and remap, and kind of pivot in a way that makes sense. Hopefully I can keep my staff, that I have. I don't know. It's going to depend on what my bills do.
This is a reality many businesses in the US are increasingly facing, and data shows they're now less inclined to hire workers. US employers added just 22,000 jobs in August, lower than expected, and average job growth between May and August was down 75% compared with the same period in 2024. Data for September and October have been delayed due to the government shutdown. Inflation, meanwhile, has ticked over 3%. Jessica Walker from the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce says many businesses she works with are adopting a wait-and-see approach to bringing on or laying off staff.
It's not where we want to be. Certainly, we were seeing robust job growth before the tariff policy came into our lives, and we want to get back to that.
Down the road from Deborah's store, Patrick Hall is also focused on high-quality goods, including some from overseas. The co-owner of Elan Flowers is paying more to import some of his blooms from cultivated flower farms, wherever the growing season is best for different varieties. But Patrick says it's hard to link reduced staff hours directly to tariffs, since they're just one of many rising costs. He's also watching other expenses like healthcare and retirement plans for his staff.
It's really hard to maintain your profit and to make a profit when you've got rising costs on real estate and tariffs, and healthcare costs us more as a small business and a small business plan than it does large businesses. Same thing with sponsoring a 401k plan. It costs a small business more than it does the large corporations because of economy of scale.
Patrick says lawmakers who often tout small businesses as the lifeblood of Main Street need to better understand the issues they face, not just large corporations. He's even proposing to bring your legislator to work day
and see what it's like to deal with all of the regulations and the things that we do, and sit beside me when I'm trying to make payroll. Just spend one day with me so that you can better understand what the differences are that small businesses face instead of large businesses.
For these small businesses, the steep import duties add insult to injury. Patrick says it's upsetting that he has to weigh their impact on top of everything else. While Deborah Koningsberger describes tariffs as a dirty word. But by whatever name they're called, the reality is that the Trump administration's move to curb goods from outside the country is already cutting at Americans inside. For CNA, I'm Mitch McCann in New York.
And that'll do it for business. Finally handing it back to you, Sari.
Well, thanks for your hard work, Roland. Now, turning our attention now to North Korea, it has held a funeral for top official Kim Yong-nam, who died this week at age 97. State media KCNA in a report showed images of mourning citizens bowing along Pyongyang streets on Wednesday as a car carrying Kim Yong-nam's flag-draped coffin and portrait drove by towards the Patriotic Martyrs Cemetery. Leader Kim Jong-un, who is unrelated to Kim Yong-nam, was accompanied by senior officials as part of a 100-member funeral committee present at the cemetery, along with family members. Now, the top official was treated for colon cancer since last year and died from multiple organ failure Monday. Japan's National Police Agency has amended its restrictive rules to allow officers to use rifles to cull bears. This comes amid a surge in bear attacks on people, with more than 100 attacks since April, with at least a dozen fatalities. Now, the amendment will take effect a week from now until 13th of November. Police task forces from Iwate and Akita prefectures, where most of the bear attacks have taken place, will be training with the local hunting associations to learn about bear habits and their vulnerabilities. Just yesterday, Tokyo took the extraordinary step to call in the ground self-defense forces to help trap bears. The soldiers will not be culling the bears with firearms. Any bears captured through such traps are later culled by trained hunters to keep the population under control. Now, brown bears and Asiatic black bears are being spotted almost daily in Japan's forested north. Sightings have jumped sixfold this year to more than 8,000. Experts say the problem is worse, especially during the season when bears search for food before winter hibernation. In other news, an incident at a Miss Universe event in Thailand has gone viral. Several contestants had walked out of the pageant on Tuesday after a Thai organizer publicly berated Miss Mexico. Now, Miss Universe Thailand director Nawat Itsaragrisil has since apologized, saying he, quote, slipped under pressure.
If you follow the order from your national director, you are damaged.
And that's Mr. Nawat singling out Miss Fatima Bosch, reprimanding her for allegedly being unable to fulfill a sponsored shoot. The Miss Mexico contestant stood to clarify her position, but she was interrupted by Mr. Nawat, who told her to sit down and threatened to call security. Miss Bosch, though, decided to take a stand.
As a woman, we have respect. They need to have respect for us. I'm here representing a country, and it's not my fault that you have problems with my organization.
No. Listen. You must listen to me, and then when I argue, you.
Now, that was Miss Bosch earlier speaking before walking out of the room. Several other Miss Universe contestants were seen following her in solidarity after the exchange. Now, this incident has been condemned by the president of the Miss Universe organization as malicious. A delegation of international executives have been sent to take over. Despite the controversy, the competition is pressing on. The new Miss Universe will be crowned on 21st of November. Just before we go, the biggest supermoon of the year is lit up skies across parts of the world with crowds gathered in major cities from Asia to Europe to just catch a glimpse of the rare celestial event. The spectacular sight known as the Beaver Moon is the second of 3 supermoons expected this year. These occur when a full moon is near its closest point to Earth in its elliptical orbit. It appears much bigger and brighter. The supermoon has reached its peak, but the phenomenon will continue to appear in skies in the coming days. The last supermoon of this year will take place on the 4th of next month. And that wraps up East Asia tonight. Don't forget your headlines anytime at cna.asia. And you can always find us on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for watching.